The stars shone coldly against the darkness of space as Admiral Krazathul stood on the command deck of his flagship. His scaled hands clasped behind his back, yellow eyes fixed on the view screen. It displayed the broken remains of human ships, floating in the void, trophies of the Coalition's final victory. "A glorious day for the 17 worlds," said General Vexmar, approaching with measured steps. "The humans fought well, but their defeat was inevitable." Krazathul nodded. 8 years of war, longer than our analysts predicted. "Humans are stubborn creatures," Vexamar replied, "but even stubborn creatures can be broken." Below them, on the ceremonial deck, Coalition representatives from all 17 species gathered around a large table. The document of surrender lay at its center, waiting for the final signatures. Guards brought in the human prisoners selected to witness their species' defeat. Major Lisa Porter walked with her head high despite her tattered uniform and the bruises on her face. She was one of the few surviving officers from Earth's defense fleet. The guards pushed her toward the front of the small group of human prisoners, making sure she could see everything clearly. "This must be difficult for you, Major," said Supreme Commander Velenex, the blue-skinned diplomat who had orchestrated the Coalition's war strategy. "Your people fought with remarkable courage. In time, perhaps you will find a place in our new order." Lisa said nothing. Her eyes remained fixed on the document that officially ended humanity's freedom. Earth's cities lay in ruins. Their orbital defenses had been destroyed. Their fleet was gone. 8 years of fighting against 17 advanced alien civilizations had ended exactly as anyone might expect. Velenex stepped forward to address the gathered representatives. "Today marks the end of the human threat. Their aggression and unpredictability will no longer endanger galactic stability. The Coalition's version of history painted humans as dangerous expansionists who needed to be contained. Lisa knew the Earth had simply refused to surrender its independence when the Coalition demanded it join under their rule. "The war is over," Velenex announced, his voice carrying through the chamber. "The human threat has been neutralized." The alien representatives applauded. Some shouted victory cries in their native languages. Lisa felt her nails digging into her palms as she clenched her fists. "You seem troubled, Major," said a quiet voice beside her. Lisa turned to see a Zentari scientist named Krell. Unlike most of his kind, he had always treated the human prisoners with a measure of respect. "Wouldn't you be troubled watching your world fall?" Lisa asked. Krell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "I studied your species before the war. Humans have a remarkable quality. You never accept defeat, even when all evidence suggests you should." "Fat lot of good it did us," Lisa muttered. The ceremony continued as Coalition leaders took turns signing the document. Guards kept the human prisoners in place, forcing them to watch as their freedom was formally ended. Lisa noticed something strange. Krell seemed nervous, his eyes darting toward the exit repeatedly. "Something wrong?" she asked quietly. "Just a small anomaly in our records," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "Probably nothing." "What kind of anomaly?" Krell hesitated. "One of your ships was never accounted for, the vessel called Defiant." Lisa struggled to keep her expression neutral. The USS Defiant had been Earth's most advanced warship, a prototype with experimental systems that disappeared during the Battle of Proxima Centauri 3 years ago. Everyone assumed it had been destroyed. "The Defiant was lost years ago," Lisa said carefully, "caught in a neutron star's radiation field." "So our records indicate," Krell agreed. "Yet there is no debris field consistent with such a destruction. I found this curious." Before Lisa could respond, the guards separated them, pushing the prisoners toward the holding area. The ceremony was ending, and celebrations would begin across Coalition space. The conquered humans would be returned to the prison camps on Luna, Azamao. The transport ship carried them back toward Earth's moon. Lisa stared out the small viewport at her broken homeworld. Earth's oceans still shone blue, but many of its cities were now just black scars on the continents. The orbital platforms where Earth's defensive fleet had been built were now twisted metal, occupied by Coalition forces. "They're going to strip mine the planet," said Ben Lewis, a communications officer who sat beside her. I overheard the guards talking. They'll take everything useful and then decide if humans are worth keeping as a labor force. Lisa had suspected as much. The coalition presented itself as a peaceful union of species, but their treatment of defeated enemies told a different story. "At least it's over," said another prisoner, his voice hollow with defeat. Lisa wasn't sure if anything was truly over. Something about Krell's words stuck with her. The defiant. Unaccounted for. It probably meant nothing, just incomplete record-keeping during the chaos of war. The transport ship docked at the lunar prison facility. Guards herded the prisoners through airlocks and down sterile corridors to their assigned cells. Lisa's rank earned her a private cell, though it was hardly a luxury, just a metal box with a bed and toilet, monitored constantly. She lay on her hard bunk, staring at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Earth burning during the final assault. She heard the screams over the military channels as the last defenses fell. A soft beep from the ancient air vent startled her. Lisa sat up, looking around cautiously. The beep came again, followed by a pattern she recognized immediately. Old Earth Morse code, something few coalition guards would understand. She moved to the vent, listening carefully. The pattern repeated 3 times before she was certain. Signal detected, origin unknown, USS Defiant, repeat USS Defiant. Lisa's heart pounded in her chest. It had to be a cruel joke or a trap set by the coalition to find humans still harboring hope of resistance. Yet something deep inside her, that human quality Krell had mentioned, the refusal to accept defeat, sparked to life. At the very edge of the Sol system, far beyond the orbit of Pluto, a single ship emerged from what appeared to be a fold in space itself. Its hull was scarred with the marks of battles and strange energies. Parts of it seemed to shimmer, as if not entirely present in normal space. On its bridge, Captain Frank Miller watched the tactical display showing the coalition forces occupying Earth orbit. His uniform was worn and modified, hardly regulation anymore. Around him, the crew worked at stations that had been rebuilt and enhanced with technologies never seen on Earth. "Long-range scans complete, Captain," reported Commander Olivia Wright, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. "Coalition presence is heavy. Earth's defenses are gone. Lunar prison camps operational." Frank nodded. "Any response to our coded transmission?" "Too soon to tell," Olivia replied. "But it's broadcasting on all the old emergency frequencies. If anyone's listening, they'll hear it." "They think they've won," Frank said quietly, eyes fixed on the distant image of Earth on the view screen, "and we're about to prove them wrong." The USS Defiant moved forward slowly, systems running silent. In 3 years, it had become much more than just a warship. What it carried now wasn't merely weapons, but something the coalition feared far more: the truth and the means to make them pay for what they had done to humanity. The USS Defiant drifted silently through the outer edges of the solar system. Its hull gleamed strangely in the distant sunlight, patches of unknown metals reflecting stars in ways Earth technology never could. The ship moved with purpose, but remained hidden from coalition scanners using technology that shouldn't exist. Captain Frank Miller studied the tactical display showing coalition patrol patterns. His face was thinner than it had been 3 years ago, new scars crossing his left cheek. The bridge around him no longer looked entirely human. Strange crystalline growths merged with standard controls, and lights pulsed in patterns that seemed almost alive. "Status report," he said, voice rough from years of giving orders in battle. Commander Olivia Wright looked up from her station. "All systems nominal, Captain. The phase shift drive is stable. Coalition patrols have no idea we're here, and the message, still broadcasting on emergency channels. If anyone's listening, they'll hear it." Frank nodded and stood, walking to the viewport. The crew watched him with a mixture of respect and concern. They had followed him through hell and back, literally, by some accounts. What they had found in the darkness between stars had changed them all. 3 years, Frank said quietly. "We left to find help, and came back to find everything gone." Olivia joined him at the viewport. Not everything, sir. People survived. Earth still exists. Barely. Frank turned to face the bridge crew. We all knew this was possible when we left, but we have something the Coalition never expected us to find. On the main screen, an image appeared. Strange ruins on a distant world, structures that seemed to bend reality around them. The precursors, the first civilization to reach the stars, long thought to be just a myth. The Defiant had found their hidden outpost, preserved for millions of years in a pocket of altered spacetime. Chief Engineer Howard. Status of the revelation. Matrix? Kevin Howard looked up from his station. The engineer's hands were no longer entirely human. Fingers merged with metallic components that allowed him to interface directly with the ship's systems. Ready at your command, Captain. Once activated, every communication system in the solar system will carry the truth. Frank nodded. We move at 0600. Get some rest while you can. In her cell on the lunar prison base, Lisa Porter jerked awake as another coded message came through the ancient ventilation system. She moved quietly to the vent, listening to the soft beeping sounds. Defiant approaching. Prepare for truth. Signal others. Lisa's heart raced. Could it really be the Defiant? The ship had been Earth's most advanced vessel, but it was still just one ship against the entire Coalition fleet. What could they possibly hope to accomplish? Yet something about the messages felt genuine. There was information only someone from Earth's military would know. Lisa had to believe it was real. Hope was all she had left. She began tapping a response using the metal button from her uniform to click against the vent in the old Morse code pattern. Throughout the prison complex, other captured officers who remembered the old codes began sharing the message. Something was coming. Be ready. On the Coalition flagship, Admiral Krazathul received an urgent report from a sensor station at the edge of the system. What do you mean, anomaly? He demanded, yellow eyes narrowing at the nervous officer on screen. Something appeared briefly on our sensors, Admiral. It registered for only 3 seconds before disappearing completely. The energy signature resembled nothing in our database. A sensor malfunction. Run diagnostics. We did, sir. 3 times. The equipment is functioning perfectly. Something was there. Krazathul felt an unfamiliar sensation. Worry. The war had been won. The humans were defeated. This should be a time of celebration, not mysterious sensor readings. Increase patrols in the outer system, he ordered, and inform me immediately of any further anomalies. After the communication ended, Krazathul found himself staring at the image of Earth on his view screen. The humans had fought far harder than expected. 8 years of brutal warfare when their surrender should have taken months at most. Something about their species made them uniquely stubborn, uniquely dangerous. Problems, Admiral? Supreme Commander Velenex entered the command deck, his blue skin shimmering in the artificial light. A sensor anomaly. Probably nothing. Velenex's expression turned serious. We must be vigilant, Admiral. The Council has decided Earth will be stripped of resources within the year. The human population will be reduced to a manageable number and relocated. Their homeworld has valuable resources we need. And if they resist further, then we eliminate them entirely. The Council has already approved the measure. Krazathul nodded, though something about the casual way Velenex discussed genocide troubled him. The Coalition claimed to stand for peace and unity, yet their actions increasingly suggested otherwise. The next morning, as Earth's sun crested the lunar horizon, the Coalition patrol ships detected an object approaching from the outer system. It moved openly now, no longer hiding. Single vessel approaching, Admiral, reported the tactical officer. Configuration appears human. Impossible, Krazathul snapped. We destroyed their fleet. The vessel appeared on the main view screen. It was clearly of human design, yet somehow different. Parts of its hull seemed to shimmer and fade as if not entirely present in normal space. Markings on its side identified it clearly. USS Defiant. The prototype vessel, Velenex said, his voice tight with anger. It was reported destroyed at Proxima Centauri. Apparently not. Krasthul replied. Order all ships to intercept. Destroy it immediately. 3 Coalition destroyers moved to engage, their weapon systems powering up. The Defiant made no attempt to evade. It continued on course toward Earth at a steady speed. The destroyers opened fire. Energy beams that could shatter mountains struck the human vessel directly and passed through it as if it weren't there. The Defiant continued forward, untouched. What just happened? Krasthul demanded. Unknown, Admiral, the tactical officer replied, voice shaking. Our weapons had no effect. It's as if the ship exists in a different phase of reality. In the prison complex, Lisa felt the vibration as Coalition ships rushed to battle stations. Something was happening. She pressed her ear to the vent again and heard a new message repeating, "Stand by for the truth." Suddenly, every communication device in the prison complex activated simultaneously. Screens that showed Coalition propaganda switched to a different image, a human standing on the bridge of a starship. Captain Frank Miller looked directly into the camera, his expression resolute. People of Earth, this is Captain Frank Miller of the USS Defiant. We have returned and we have brought the truth. The Coalition isn't what it claims to be. They've done this before to dozens of worlds. We found the evidence and now everyone will see it. Throughout the solar system, on every Coalition ship and base, on every communication channel, the same message played, and behind it, data began to flow. Records hidden for centuries showing the Coalition's true history of conquest and extinction. In her cell, Lisa Porter smiled for the first time in months. The war might have been lost, but perhaps the fight wasn't over after all. Chaos erupted across the Coalition fleet as the Revelation Matrix continued to broadcast. Every screen, every communication device, every data terminal displayed the same evidence. Records of planets conquered, species subjugated or wiped out, entirely, all to expand the Coalition's power. On the Coalition flagship, Admiral Krasthul watched in horror as his crew began arguing among themselves. Many of the lower-ranking officers came from worlds that had joined the Coalition generations ago, never knowing the truth of how their ancestors had been conquered. "Shut down all communications," Krasthul ordered. "This is human propaganda." But the systems wouldn't respond. The Revelation Matrix had infected their computers at a level their technology couldn't block. The truth continued to flow, unstoppable, supreme. Commander Velenex's face had turned a darker shade of blue with rage. "Find that ship and destroy it immediately. Use all weapons." "Our weapons passed right through it," Krasthul reminded him. "It's operating with technology we don't understand." "Then, ram it. Use our ships as weapons if necessary." Before Krasthul could respond, a junior officer from the Tellarite species stepped forward. "I won't follow those orders. Not after seeing this." He gestured to the screen showing the destruction of his ancestral homeworld centuries ago. Information that had been hidden from his people. All across the fleet, similar scenes played out. The Coalition had presented itself as a peaceful union of worlds, but the truth was far darker. Species that had been conquered had their histories rewritten, told they had joined willingly. Now they saw the lies for what they were. Deep within, the USS Defiant Chief Engineer Kevin Howard monitored the Revelation Matrix as it spread through Coalition systems. His modified hands moved across controls that melded human technology with something far more advanced. The precursor technology they had discovered wasn't just weapons or shields. It was truth in its purest form, impossible to block or deny. "It's working," Kevin reported. "Coalition communications are in disarray. Some ships are standing down. Others are turning against the command vessels." Captain Miller nodded. "Phase 2 then. Commander Wright, deploy the liberation pods." Olivia pressed, her palm against a crystal formation embedded in her console. Around the Defiant, dozens of small objects detached from its hull and streaked toward the lunar prison complex. In her cell, Lisa Porter felt the building shake. Alarms blared through the corridors, and she could hear guards shouting in confusion. The message through the vent had changed. "Stand by doors, freedom comes." Lisa moved to her cell door, heart pounding. Outside, coalition guards ran past, some arguing with each other, others abandoning their posts entirely as the truth about their leaders continued to spread through every device. A small object, no bigger than a fist, attached itself to her cell door. It pulsed with strange light for 3 seconds, then the door simply disappeared, not destroyed or unlocked, but phased out of reality entirely. Similar scenes played out through the entire prison complex as liberation pods freed the human prisoners. In the corridor outside her cell, Lisa found Ben Lewis and other officers already organizing the freed prisoners. "What's happening?" Lisa asked. "The Defiant is back," Ben said, grinning. "And it brought friends." He handed her a small device that had fallen from one of the liberation pods. It fit perfectly in her palm and seemed to pulse in time with her heartbeat. Instinctively, she knew how to use it, though the technology was like nothing she had seen before. "We need to reach the communications hub," Lisa decided. "If we can contact the Defiant directly, we can coordinate with them." As they moved through the prison complex, they encountered confused guards, many of whom surrendered without a fight. The revelation about the Coalition's true history had shaken their loyalty. Some even joined the humans, admitting they had begun to question their leaders' actions. On Earth, similar uprisings began as the Revelation Matrix reached the ground-based occupation forces. The truth affected different species in different ways, but many of the younger Coalition soldiers had never fully embraced the war against humanity. Seeing their leaders' lies exposed pushed them to reconsider everything. Admiral Krazathul watched his carefully controlled occupation force disintegrate. Nearly a third of the Coalition fleet had gone dark, their crews presumably in revolt. Another third had pulled back, refusing to engage, but not yet turning against their commanders. Only the Zentari ships remained fully loyal. The Zentari Empire had been founding members of the Coalition and benefited most from its conquests. "We still have enough firepower to destroy that human ship," Velenex insisted. "Whatever technology they're using, it cannot stand against our combined might." "The ship isn't the problem anymore," Krazathul replied, gesturing to the screens showing uprisings across the system. "The damage is done, the truth is out. Then we eliminate the humans entirely. Right now, orbital bombardment of all remaining population centers. We'll deal with the fallout later." Krazathul stared at the Supreme Commander. "That would be genocide. It wouldn't be the first time," Velenex said coldly. "Give the order, Admiral." Instead, Krazathul drew his sidearm and pointed it at Velenex. "No, this ends now." On the lunar surface, Lisa Porter and her growing band of freed prisoners and defecting Coalition soldiers reached the communication hub. The Coalition officers, they surrendered immediately. They had seen the evidence of their leaders' crimes and wanted no part in it anymore. Lisa established direct contact with the Defiant. Captain Miller's face appeared on the main screen, older and more weathered than when he had left Earth 3 years earlier. "Major Porter, good to see you alive." "Captain Miller, your timing is impressive. What exactly did you find out there?" Miller's expression was somber. "The truth about the universe, Major. The Coalition isn't the first empire to rule the stars. They're just the latest in a long line. The precursors left behind warnings and tools to fight back. They believed humanity would be different, that we might break the cycle." "One ship against an empire seems like poor odds," Lisa noted. "It's not just the ship," Miller replied. "It's what we brought back. The precursor technology doesn't just let us phase through matter or broadcast data. It lets us show absolute truth in a way that can't be denied or twisted. And truth, it turns out, is the most powerful weapon in the galaxy." Ben Lewis looked at the strange device in his hand, watching as it synchronized with his thoughts. "These devices, what are they?" The precursors called them harmony keys. They allow direct neural interface with their technology. They'll help you take control of Coalition systems without needing access codes. Lisa felt the device warm in her hand, connecting with her mind, on a level she couldn't fully comprehend. Suddenly she understood Coalition systems as if she had designed them herself. "We've started the revolution," Captain Miller said, "but we need your help to finish it. The Coalition leadership won't surrender easily." "What's our next move?" Lisa asked. We bring the fight to them. The Zentari ships are still loyal to their commanders. We need to neutralize them before they decide to scorch Earth out of spite. Lisa nodded. We'll handle the ground forces, you take care of the fleet. As the communication ended, Lisa turned to the growing group of humans and coalition defectors around her. We have work to do. Earth still needs saving. For the first time since the war began, she felt something that had been missing for too long: hope. The battle for Earth entered its second day. Coalition ships loyal to Supreme Commander Velenex positioned themselves in high orbit, weapons aimed at major population centers. The remaining human cities, already damaged from the war, prepared for what might be a final attack. But the Defiant was not alone anymore. Nearly 40% of the coalition fleet had joined Captain Miller's side, their crews unwilling to serve leaders who had lied to them for generations. These ships formed a protective barrier between Earth and the Loyalist vessels. On the lunar surface, Major Lisa Porter led a mixed force of humans and coalition defectors toward the main control center. The Harmony key pulsed warmly in her hand, connecting her mind to the precursor technology. Through it, she could sense the other keys, carried by trusted officers throughout the solar system. They formed a network, sharing information instantly. Loyalist forces approaching from the east, Ben Lewis warned, his own key glowing as it fed him tactical data. About 30 soldiers, mostly Zentari. Lisa nodded. Ryan, take your team around the ridge. Sam, set up crossfire positions. We need to take this control center intact. The human and alien soldiers moved with practiced efficiency. 3 weeks ago, they had been enemies. Now they fought side by side against the true threat, the coalition leadership that had manipulated them all. Inside the USS Defiant, Captain Frank Miller watched the battle unfold on tactical displays. The ship hovered near Earth's moon, its advanced precursor technology making it nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. But even the Defiant had limits. Shield integrity at 62%, reported Commander Olivia Wright. The Zentari flagship is using some kind of resonance weapon that's affecting our phase state. Frank frowned. They're adapting faster than expected. Engineer Howard, options? Kevin looked up from his station, the metallic components in his fingers, glinting as they interfaced directly with the ship's systems. I can modify our phase frequency, but it will take the revelation matrix offline for about 6 minutes. We can't risk that, Frank decided. The matrix is our best weapon. The truth is still spreading across coalition space. If it goes offline, they might be able to contain it. Then we fight conventionally, Olivia suggested. Our allies outnumber the Loyalists now. Frank studied the tactical display. The Loyalist forces were concentrated around 3 Zentari dreadnoughts, massive warships that outgunned anything else in the system. Leading them was the flagship Dominion, where Supreme Commander Velenex had established his command after the mutiny on Krazathul's vessel. Target the Dominion's propulsion systems, Frank ordered. If we can immobilize it, we can isolate Velenex from his forces. On the Dominion's bridge, Supreme Commander Velenex watched with growing rage as his fleet continued to fracture. The human broadcast had reached coalition homeworlds now, sparking protests and unrest. Everything he had worked for was unraveling. Admiral Krazathul has been captured by mutineers on his own ship, reported a Zentari officer. They're demanding, we stand down. Krazathul was always weak, Velenex snarled. Launch the planet-killer missiles. If we cannot have Earth, no one will. The weapons officer hesitated. Sir, there are still millions of civilians. Velenex drew his weapon and fired, killing the officer instantly. He turned to the next in line. Launch the missiles now, or join him. The terrified officer complied, initiating the launch sequence for weapons designed to crack a planet's crust. Alarms blared across the ship as massive missiles prepared to deploy. In the Lunar Control Center, Lisa Porter and her team had just secured the facility when her Harmony key flashed with urgent information. They're launching planet killers from the Dominion, she announced, face pale. Impact in 12 minutes. Can we shoot them down? Asked Sam, a former coalition pilot who had defected. Not from here, Lisa replied. And there are too many for orbital defenses. Ben Lewis studied the data flowing through his key. The missiles need to maintain a specific trajectory to penetrate Earth's crust. If we could alter their course even slightly, we need control of their guidance systems, Lisa realized. She raised her hand, connecting directly to the Defiant through her key. Captain Miller, we need to access the Dominion's weapons control. Frank's voice came through clearly in her mind. We can't breach their shields conventionally. We don't need to, Lisa replied. We have someone inside already. On the Dominion, a junior communications officer named Wren waited for his moment. A Harmony key hidden in his uniform pocket connected him to the human network. He had joined the Resistance after seeing evidence that his homeworld had been forcibly conquered, its history rewritten by coalition leaders. As the planet killer, missiles launched, Wren moved quietly to an auxiliary control station. He placed his hand on the console, letting the key interface with the ship's systems. For a brief moment, he gained access to the guidance computers. It wasn't enough to stop the launch, but it was enough to alter the missile's trajectories by 2 degrees, sending them not toward Earth but into the sun. On the Defiant, engineer Kevin Howard watched the missile's paths change. They'll hit the sun in approximately 17 minutes. The radiation burst will be significant. Warn all ships to move to the far side of Earth or the Moon, Frank ordered. The sun's magnetic field will channel most of the energy away from us, but it'll still be dangerous. As ships scrambled to take shelter, the Defiant moved to engage the Dominion directly. Without its planet killers, the Zentari flagship was still deadly, but no longer posed an existential threat to Earth. They're powering up their main cannon, Olivia reported, targeting our engines. Let them, Frank said calmly, activate the reflection array. Kevin nodded, manipulating the crystalline controls. Array online. The Dominion fired, its energy beams striking the Defiant directly. For a moment, the human ship seemed to absorb the blast. Then, impossibly, the energy curved around the Defiant's hull and shot back toward its source, striking the Dominion's weapon emplacements. Direct hit, Olivia announced. Their main weapons are offline. The Harmony network lit up with news from across the solar system. Coalition ground forces were surrendering in masses. The truth about their leaders had spread too far to contain. Only the 3 Zentari dreadnoughts continued to fight, their crews loyal to their commander through fear or fanaticism. On the lunar surface, Lisa Porter watched the planet-killer missiles curve toward the sun instead of Earth. A cheer went up from her mixed force of humans and defectors. We've got control of the lunar defense grid, Ben reported. We can target the Zentari ships now. Hold fire, Lisa ordered. Captain Miller is giving them a chance to surrender. The Defiant positioned itself directly in front of the damaged Dominion. Frank opened a channel to all remaining Loyalist vessels. This is Captain Frank Miller of the USS Defiant. Your planet killers have failed. Your forces are deserting. The truth about your leaders has spread across coalition space. Stand down now, and you will be treated fairly. For long moments, there was silence. Then the Dominion's engines flared, as it attempted to ram the Defiant in a final desperate attack. The Defiant didn't move. Instead, as the massive Zentari ship approached, it simply phased out of normal space. The Dominion passed through empty vacuum, its momentum carrying it into the waiting guns of former coalition ships that had joined the human cause. Lisa watched through the lunar facility's viewports as the Dominion was surrounded, its engines disabled by precision fire. One by one, the remaining Loyalist ships powered down their weapons. It's over, Ben said quietly. Lisa shook her head, the Harmony key showing her the bigger picture. No, it's just beginning. 3 months after the battle for Earth, representatives from 17 worlds gathered in the rebuilt United Nations chamber in Geneva. The room had been redesigned, with a circular table replacing the old assembly hall. No species sat above, others now. All were equal in this new alliance. Captain Frank Miller stood by the window looking out at the city. Geneva had suffered less damage than most Earth cities during the war, making it a fitting place for this historic meeting. His uniform had been replaced with formal diplomatic attire, though he still wore the small insignia of the USS Defiant on his collar. Nervous? Asked Commander Olivia Wright, joining him at the window. Cautiously optimistic, Frank replied. We've come a long way in 3 months. Indeed they had, with the capture of Supreme Commander Velenex and the surrender of the Loyalist forces. A new era had begun. The Revelation Matrix had continued to spread the truth throughout Coalition space, leading to revolutions on many worlds as the subjugated species overthrew their Zentari overseers. The delegates are ready, announced Major Lisa Porter, now serving as Earth's head of security. The harmony key at her wrist pulsed softly, connecting her to the network that now spanned the solar system. We should begin soon. Frank nodded and moved toward the central table. Representatives from all 17 former Coalition worlds waited, along with human delegates from Earth's surviving nations. Many of the aliens looked uncomfortable. They had been enemies only months ago. Now they sought a different path forward. At the center of the table sat a crystalline device, a precursor artifact that Captain Miller's crew had discovered during their 3-year journey. It projected a holographic display of the known galaxy, with thousands of stars glowing in the air above the table. Thank you all for coming, Frank began. 3 months ago we were enemies. Today we meet as potential allies. The Coalition as you knew it is gone. The truth about its origins and methods has been revealed to all. Now we must decide what comes next. An elderly Tellarite delegate spoke up. My people were among the first conquered by the Zentari centuries ago. Our true history was erased, replaced with lies about a willing alliance. We cannot return to any system that resembles the Coalition. Murmurs of agreement came from other species. The Zentari delegates remained silent, their faces impassive. They had lost the most in the revolution, their empire and their privileged position atop the Coalition hierarchy. No one is suggesting we rebuild the Coalition, Frank assured them. But we still face common challenges. The galaxy is vast and largely unknown. The precursors left warnings about threats beyond our current understanding. We need each other. Engineer Kevin Howard stepped forward, his modified hands gesturing toward the holographic display. The precursor archives we discovered tell of cycles of civilization, rises and falls spanning millions of years. The Coalition was following the same pattern as countless empires before it: conquest, subjugation, eventual collapse. The hologram shifted, showing the rise and fall of civilizations across the galaxy over vast time periods. It was a sobering display. The precursors believed this cycle could be broken, Kevin continued. They saw potential in species that valued cooperation over domination. That's why they left their technology where it could eventually be found. By humans, conveniently, noted a Zentari delegate, his tone skeptical. Not specifically by humans, Frank clarified. By any species that would use it to break the cycle rather than continue it. We found it first, but the technology is meant for all of us. Lisa Porter activated her own harmony key, adding to the holographic display. The Defiant discovered 12 more precursor outposts during our journey. Each contains knowledge and technology beyond our current understanding. But the archives make it clear, this knowledge was meant to be shared, not hoarded. The room fell silent as delegates considered the implications. For most species, the idea of freely sharing advanced technology ran counter to everything they had experienced under Coalition rule. Ben Lewis, now serving as Earth's communications director, spoke next. We're proposing a new kind of alliance not built on conquest or fear, but on mutual benefit and truth. The Harmony Network can ensure transparency between our worlds in ways the Coalition never allowed. And if we choose not to join this Harmony, asked the Zentari delegate. Then you don't join, Frank said simply. Each world is free to choose its own path forward. We're offering an alternative to the cycle of empire and collapse, not imposing it. Discussion continued for hours as delegates raised concerns, asked questions, and debated the proposal. Some species were eager to join, while others remained cautious. The Zentari, in particular, struggled with their new reality as equals rather than rulers. As the first day of talks concluded, Frank returned to the window, watching the sunset over Geneva. Earth was healing slowly. Rebuilding would take decades, but for the first time since the war began, there was hope. Do you think it will work? Asked a voice behind him. Frank turned to see Admiral Kraz Thule, the former coalition commander who had turned against Velanax in the final battle. He now represented a faction of Zentari who sought reconciliation rather than continued conflict. Honestly, I don't know, Frank admitted. We're trying something that's never been done before. The precursors left the tools, but using them properly is up to us. Krasthul nodded, his yellow eyes reflective. For centuries, my people believed dominance was the only path to security. It's difficult to consider alternatives. But not impossible, Frank suggested. No, the Admiral agreed. Not impossible. The next morning, delegates reconvened to continue negotiations. The atmosphere had changed subtly. There was more openness, more willingness to consider new possibilities. As discussions proceeded, a framework for the new alliance began to take shape. It would be called the Galactic Concordat, an agreement between equals, backed by precursor technology that made deception nearly impossible. Each world would maintain its sovereignty while committing to principles of cooperation and non-aggression. By the week's end, 14 of the 17 worlds had agreed to join. Only the Zentari and 2 of their closest allies remained uncertain, requesting more time to consider. As the signing ceremony began, Frank stood with his crew from the Defiant. Olivia, Kevin, and the others who had journeyed with him into the unknown and returned with the truth that changed everything. 3 years ago, we left Earth seeking allies and found only ruins, Frank said to the assembled delegates. But what those ruins contained was more valuable than any military alliance. The precursors gave us a choice: continue the endless cycle of empires or build something new. One by one, representatives came forward to sign the Concordat. As each signature was added, the precursor crystal at the center of the table pulsed brighter, its light spreading throughout the chamber. Lisa Porter stood beside Frank as the ceremony concluded. So what happens now, Captain? Frank smiled. Now, the real work begins. The Defiant wasn't just a warship, it was meant to be the first of a new kind of vessel. Explorer, diplomat, guardian. There's so much more to discover out there. And the precursor outposts? Kevin asked. We'll explore them together with our new allies, share what we learn, build something better than what came before. As delegates mingled after the ceremony, Frank found himself looking up through the chamber's glass ceiling at the stars becoming visible in the evening sky. The war had been won, then lost, then transformed into something entirely unexpected. Earth was no longer alone, no longer at the mercy of a vast empire. Instead, it stood as an equal partner in a new alliance built on the ashes of the old. The USS Defiant had returned not just with weapons to win a war, but with truth to forge a peace. And somewhere out there, the precursor's legacy waited, not just for humanity, but for all species willing to break the cycle and build a different future together.